JB here, JB here. Hang on one second. There we go. Hope everyone's doing outstanding. Wednesday, December 31st, 9:06 a.m. Happy New Year's Eve. Talk really quick about the market. Some names I'm looking at go from their S&P. Pretty much flat, actually slightly in the green now. Futures, let's see, up about 10% after the weekly jobless claims came in better than expectations. 199,000 jobs. Let's see, what do I have it versus 210,000 job estimates. So, uh, not much in way of data this week. Outside, we had the Fed minutes yesterday was pretty much a non-event. If you didn't know that the Fed minutes were being released, you would think it never happened because the markets didn't even move after the release of the Fed minutes. Those came in as expected, right? Divisive. You still have some of the Fed officials want to hold the rate cutting cycle at least to see how the first couple cuts uh, how those with inflation, all the other concerns. People are worried that inflation is going to run away, and typically when you have high inflation, you don't want to cut rates, so they want to see what's going to happen. Because hang on one second, sorry folks, trying to look at this here. Apologize. Hang on a second. Okay, there. Sorry about that, folks. So there's concern. You have some of the especially the current administration, they want to cut rates, and then you have concern that if you cut rates too fast in the face of high inflation, that it's going to be runaway inflation, or we're going to have stagflation where inflation is going to remain sticky, but then the Fed doesn't have tools to really fight that if we continue to cut rates. So, or we'll have to reverse course. So you have some caution there. But now, the big case to cut rates was the jobs market, right? So we'll see how that all continues to pan out. You have to think with Fed Chair Powell's term ending in May, the new person who comes in is going to be extremely dovish. So you have to think the market starts pricing that in. But it looks like right now there's like a 15% probability that the Fed cuts rates at the January meeting. Next one's not until March. Still, the probability is pretty low that there's a possibility that the market's pricing in that there's no rate cuts for the first three meetings for 2026. But we've seen how that all works. We've had these expectations being low going into the meetings, only for those probabilities to go up right before the meeting, and then they do cut rates. But anyway, rants for other days. So end of the year here, 17% gain for the S&P for the year, pending any crazy move here today. Nasdaq's up 21% year to date. Dow's up over 13%. So back to back to back great years. At some point, right, all this this great stuff comes to an end. Maybe not for a while. Who knows? I love historicals. So we're ending December. January is historically decent performing month, average return of 1%. And then these charts, which I'm going to have to hold on to these, but you can just cross-reference all the dates. And today, on average, December 31st has a 0.14% gain for the S&P average since 1950. So should be a fun one. The last four sessions, very boring chop fest. So tight trading ranges. Yesterday, 0.29% trading range on the S&P, which is one of the top five tightest trading ranges in the entire year. Then you look at the volumes too, nothing to write home about. The last four sessions right at the 2025 lows. So pretty much watching paint dry. Hopefully that changes. And then we get some opportunities for some volatility here. Okay, so that's kind of overall markets. And then just things to look at. Even we've had some of these polls, and I think, where did I post that? The last three sessions have markets closed in the red. It has been the lowest. Let's see how if I can word this here. The S&P's, it's had the best 3-day losing streak since August of 2022. So remarkable stuff. S&P's down 3 days in a row and only down 0.5% over that time frame. So we'll see what today's brings. Hopefully some chop. And then we could just melt higher. 688 to 690 close would be ideal. If there is some weakness, sellers come in. 686 would be a spot I'm watching. Now, the other thing to watch, obviously, the precious metals, silver and golds, back in the forefront. To me, and I don't know if I mentioned this before, I posted the charts 2 days ago. Like, to me, it's the silver to gold ratio, right? Everybody always talks about that ratio. I mean, gosh, I remember 2014, the huge move up in silver, and that was one of the big selling points. Then you have people, when these moves happen, you have all these, I would call them conspiracy theories, but all these stories coming out, right? China's banning silver imports, like all these different things that come out of the woodworks while these precious metals go bonkers. It's almost like to rationalize moves, number one, and then number two, to give credibility to the possibility of more squeezes, right? So sometimes it's best to have cooler heads prevail. But interesting stuff, and to see the market hold up not only with Bitcoin getting taken to the woodshed, but then this huge volatility in precious metals. I think that's pretty remarkable stuff. So anyway, 2025 is almost over. 2026, I'll have my top 5 stock webinar out before the weekend, or hopefully by the weekend. I already announced one of my top 5 stocks. I don't know if today will be, some others come out, probably not, maybe Friday. All right, that's overall markets. So now just quick on individual names. TripAdvisor added those January strikes, I guess it was last week, and the stock was kind of melting higher when I got the strikes last week, and the premiums were kind of staying flat. It was frustrating, right? And then it pulls back on Monday. Premiums get crushed on the name, and all of a sudden yesterday it just starts melting higher. And 13 opens at 1377, it's 1390, then over 14, and slow melt up. And by the noon hour, it's at 1420, up 4%, despite the market weakness. So I start looking around for the catalyst. There's no news, no analyst notes or upgrades or catalysts that I could see in the sector. Other names in the sector weren't going bonkers. And I look, 6,000 contracts were traded on the January 2027 $25 call, 6,000 strikes. Open interest on that was 7,000. So I thought maybe it was a closing position, but there was no spread attached to it. So it could have been an opening, or someone could be selling to open. Who knows? With 22% short interest, and pretty much anything's open. But maybe that was some of the reason why the stock went. Once it started to break over 1450, my January 15 call started to gain some premium, got close to a double. I figured the best use that as an opportunity to add some further out strikes. I was looking at the February's, finally went out and got the March calls. And then I'm trying to get my January 15s out for a double. Hopefully today's the day I get an opportunity. Start looking at the chart. 1550 looks pretty much like the breaking point. 1514 was a 50-day moving average. I don't want to go on a huge rant on TripAdvisor. It's not the most sexy name. People look at Trip and it's an old name, right? It's one of the OGs of travel, the first travel website. But to me, I see it as the most traveled website, 400 million active views or active users on the site. It's been years and years of a story that they just failed to monetize that. Just crazy stuff. But then on the flip side, they have over 1 billion travel reviews on the site. So because of that, you have 1 billion human interaction with the site. That just opens it up for an opportunity to monetize that via all these LLMs and AI platforms out there that are looking to get the next leg over its competitors, right? So the best way to do that is get licensing deals with folks who have the most human data. And Reddit, of course, is one of the reasons why I'm bullish that name. But I mean, Trip is one of those under the radar names that just remarkable that it's still sitting here with all these different catalysts, the starboard stake. Now you put in that high short interest, and to me now you have the possibility of more AI deals with licensing agreements, and it doesn't even have to be much, right? 10 million or what have you, and that to me that's not even baked into the stock at all. So, and then you have the backdrop of possible spin-offs and the Viator and the fork and all those different things I can throw out there. But anyway, I look at the stock, I think it should be trading into the 20s right now. It's sitting here at 1460. So market could be continue to trade at value here at 1460. I could be completely wrong, or this could be a major opportunity. Of course, I think it's a major opportunity. I'll just continue to hold my strikes. If I can get my Januaries out for 100%, I might look for some more closer strikes, inexpensive ones, just in case this catches fire. I mean, look at this chart. It's boring, right? Why is it boring? It won't take much for the premiums to start to really creep into the call. So, all right, so that's Trip. SERV Robotics, yesterday you had that Dan Ives shout out on Fast Money 2 days ago. You have, and I got to look if they're presenting at in Vegas, right? So CES I think is next week, January 3rd to the 6th. I don't know if they have a booth or whatever. I'll have to look into that. I think you mentioned some to that effect. I don't know if they're gonna have a presentation. So I have to look more into that. But he was bullish SERV into 2026 as a robotics play. I mean, barking up the wrong tree here. I'm extremely bullish SERV. I think it should be trading into 20s, just like TripAdvisor. It was almost on its way early in the fall, and then just stumbled. Another high short interest name. You look around, I still think there's people who think this is a zero, right? You have, who's it, the Bear Cave. Uh, I don't like to throw rocks, right? Sometimes it's not good to throw rocks. I'm not here to talk bad about folks, right? I think those short pieces and folks who write these short hit pieces on some of these stocks, hey, they serve a purpose, right? Price discovery, due diligence discovery. All it does is open more eyes to a name, right? And if there is some impropriety or negative things that are going on in the company, it's good to be out in the limelight, right? But to me, sometimes some of these folks who do these hit pieces, they buy the puts and then they post inaccurate information to to create some fun. That's the stuff that just doesn't rub me the right way. And some of these rubs me the wrong way, right? And some of these folks over the years have done that, right? And then they just leave, wreckage, the rubble, and then just move on to the next one to try and destroy. So they came out with the hit piece on SERV Robotics, posting about some robots getting kicked over, just a lot of different things that, I mean, to me, if you have to look to the future, in my opinion. This last mile delivery has always been a big hurdle that has to get passed. And SERV Robotics provides a solution for that. And not only the last mile, now I was talking about yesterday with the drones, right? Once they partner with some of these drop off facilities where they can get the serve to not only drop it off, but also pick it up and deliver the last mile. I think great opportunity. You also have the monetizing the ad side of it, where you have these robots roaming the streets with ads on it. I think there's a lot of different levers that can be pulled. Not only that, they had a plan for this year of rolling out 2,000 robots, and they already announced the 2,000th robot ahead of schedule. So we have these high growth names with little revenue that's very easy to poke holes on the bull case, and they've been able to execute. So to me, it's just a great story. If you look at its next year's revenues, I think it's like a 1,000 or 1,500% top line revenue growth. That's already, they already gave that guidance. So you look at the stocks trading at $10 here, as if that the market's saying it's not going to happen. I just boggles my mind. So anyway, and the other part of it, they rolled out their 2,000th robot. So to me, that's the cost factor, right? How much does it cost to get those robots done? It's not like they are starting to scale out and there's a huge cost associated with it. They already jumped that hurdle, and now it's just about the maintenance side of these robots. How long the batteries last? So that's probably another hurdle to cross as well. But to me, the hard part is kind of done. So anyway, I don't know how much the stock is de-risked here, but to me, I think it should be trading substantially higher. This morning, you had Freedom Capital initiating with a buy rating, $16 price target. You have Oppenheimer, $20. As all these other analysts are at or above those levels. Anyway, I'm not going to go on a rant too much further here, but I added more strikes yesterday. I'll continue to look for opportunities to play that one for upside. Which brings me to Axum, right? My top 5 stock webinar will be out by the end of the week. I've talked about this earlier this week. There's been names acquired this year. Udemy, another name, one of my top 5 stocks bought out. I think it's over 30% of the stocks that I've profiled have been acquired, M&A, right? They've been taken off the market. LinkedIn was a stock that had one of my top 5 stocks that's acquired. I can go on and on some of these names, but let's see here. But here's another name. So Axum's a name, I think it was 2023 that I had as one of my top 5 stocks, $60, $70 stock back then. They have a huge pipeline, 5 major drugs, I think at least, that are in the works. One is already revenue producing, so on the market. They're MDD, right? They're depression drug. I don't know if it's similar to some of these, the Paxil and some of these other depressive drugs over the years. I forget the other names, some of these names. But anyway, so they have that aspect. They also have some other names, narcolepsy, which I don't even know if that drug is on the market or if there's an actual solution. Alzheimer's, their agitation drug. So a big part of the Alzheimer's, the shakes. And so that there's just a lot of different pipelines that they have going. And I look at it's a $7 billion company right now. It's a name, and I think I said this one is $100. It could be one of those mega cap names, one of those big biotech names that you look back in its pre-revenue days and say, wow, this is a nice story. And the next thing you know, it's a $50 to $100 billion company. We'll see what happens with Axum. I was looking, I don't know if it was earlier this year when it was 130 for some strikes. I passed, dipped all the way back under right near $100, and now maybe it's another opportunity here. So don't be surprised if I add some strikes. They had a FDA review, I guess, to, I don't even know. Oh, it is their narcolepsy drug. But it looks like they're going to be able to get a new NDA on it. Anyway, so don't be surprised I had some strikes. That's that. That's Axum. SanDisk, RH, Oracle, Broadcom. Tough market to try and trade lottos if it's not moving much, right? So I'm not going to try and force trades, but if you see some opportunities on those, I mean, I was watching RH for that move to $200. It had a rough session yesterday, so it's sitting here at 180, 81.93. Maybe inexpensive lottos there. I keep watching Oracle and Broadcom. I still think Oracle's going to trade north of 200. Been waiting for that one. It's been doing nothing. Yesterday it was stuck between 196 and 197 for like 3 hours. So not the type of trade that makes money. So hopefully find some opportunities, whether today or Friday. And that's it, folks. Anyway, Happy New Year. I'll be back on audio later. Let's have a great day. Rock and roll.